Welcome to another retail battle. Today, we are exploring a psychological phenomenon that drives billions of dollars in retail sales every year. They call it the thrill of the hunt. Most modern retail is built on predictability. When you walk into a Target or a grocery store, you expect a clean layout, consistent inventory, and predictable pricing. But there is a massive sector of the retail economy that thrives on the exact opposite. They thrive on chaos, unpredictability, and the intoxicating feeling that you might find a hidden masterpiece buried under a mountain of ordinary items. On the left, we have Ross Dress for Less, a corporate juggernaut dominating the off-price closeout market. On the right, we have Goodwill Thrift Store, the absolute giant of the circular donation economy. At first glance, they might seem to serve the same purpose. They are places you go to dig through tightly packed racks in search of massive discount. But the economic engines powering these two environments could not be more different. One relies entirely on localized, erratic human charity, while the other relies on a highly calculated, aggressive corporate supply chain designed to mimic a treasure hunt. Let's see how they stack up. Round 1. Supply chain dynamics and inventory chaos. To understand what you see on the racks of these stores, you have to understand how the product gets there. Let's look at Ross first. Ross doesn't make anything. Instead, they rely on a strategy called opportunistic buying. When major fashion brands overproduce clothing, or when traditional department stores order too much inventory and can't sell it, Ross steps in. They buy up these massive corporate leftovers at a fraction of the cost. Sometimes they even pack merchandise away in giant warehouses for months, holding on to it until the market clears, just to release it later as a brand new surprise for shoppers. The chaos you see on a Ross rack, where a designer jacket sits next to a generic t-shirt, is manufactured. It's a corporate illusion designed to make you feel like you stumbled upon a rare mistake. Now look at Goodwill. Goodwill's inventory is genuinely chaotic. It is entirely dependent on the local community surrounding that specific storefront. When a neighbor cleans out their garage or someone down the street downsizes their wardrobe, those items end up here. If an affluent neighborhood donates high-end goods, that specific store benefits. If donations dry up, the racks thin out. The major difference here is intentionality. Ross intentionally scrambles its inventory to create an artificial treasure hunt of brand new overstock. Goodwill presents a genuine, raw reflection of a community's cast-offs. Round 2. Store design and the chaos layout. Because their inventory models are so different, their approaches to store design and presentation diverge sharply, even if both look cluttered at a glance. Ross utilizes what retail experts call an engineered scarcity layout. The aisles are wide, but the clothing racks themselves are intentionally packed to maximum capacity. Why? Because retail psychology proves that if a consumer has to physically work, dig, and pull an item out from a packed rack, they develop a sense of personal ownership over it before they even reach the cash register. You feel like you rescued those Nikes from the crowd. Ross also keeps its aesthetic incredibly sterile. Bright fluorescent lighting, bare floors, and industrial racks. This signals to your brain that the company isn't wasting money on fancy decorations, so they can keep prices lower. Goodwill operates under a completely different set of operational constraints. They don't have the luxury of organizing by brand or size consistency because every single item is unique. Instead, they rely on macro categorization. You will see racks organized strictly by product type and color palette, rather than size or label. This creates a very different kind of friction. At Ross, you are hunting for a specific brand or size amid a sea of overstock. At Goodwill, you are hunting for physical quality, longevity, and historical value amid a sea of true second-tier goods. The Goodwill layout forces you to slow down, look at the tags, and inspect the physical fabric for wear and tear. Round 3. The economics of value. This brings us to the core battle. What does value actually mean in these two spaces? At Ross, value is explicitly defined by the contrast between traditional retail. Almost every price tag at Ross features a compared to price, explicitly telling you how much money you are saving compared to a standard department store. The value proposition here is brand validation at a discount. You are buying the cultural status of a known brand, but at an off-price entry point. At Goodwill, the definition of value has shifted dramatically over the last decade. Historically, thrift stores offered baseline utility pricing. Clothes were cheap because they were used. But in the modern era of vintage fashion trends and online reselling platforms like Poshmark and eBay, Goodwill has adapted. They now employ workers specifically trained to spot high-value vintage items or luxury brands, often routing those items to specialized display cases or their own online auction site. The value proposition at Goodwill isn't about matching a compared-to price tag. It's about the arbitrage of finding a piece of history or a high-quality vintage garment that literally isn't manufactured anymore. In conclusion, we see two entirely different philosophies of modern consumerism colliding. Ross Dress for Less represents the ultimate refinement of the traditional corporate retail machine. It takes the excess, overproduction, and waste of major fashion brands and repackages it into a thrilling, fast-paced treasure hunt that satisfies our desire for brand names at a discount. It's like a children's Easter egg hunt. And perhaps inspired by a recent family road trip to California, I think Goodwill is a classic gold panning experience, like straight out of the year 1849. Goodwill stores are a gritty, unpredictable terrain of rocks and dirt where finding a true treasure requires patience, effort, and some luck. Both stores successfully trigger our brain's dopamine responses through the thrill of the hunt. But while Ross masters the illusion of the find, Goodwill offers the real thing, unfiltered, unpredictable, and entirely unique. So which store are you hunting for treasure at? Check the comment section below to see my answer and join the conversation. Then subscribe for more retail battles. Thanks for watching.